Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. I want to thank everyone for taking time out of their busy schedules today and to attend. Just a little housekeeping. Folks that are in attendance, your microphone at this point. But if you do have questions, do type it in the chat box and the Q&A box, and we'll be monitoring that. We will make sure that these questions do get answered. Before we begin, I'd like to make some brief introductions. My name is Brian Beadle. I have a long-time background in FP&A, financial processes, modeling, and implementing systems that help businesses have gain better financial management and gain better business insight. I am a managing partner in Akamar Consulting. I'd also like to introduce Andrew Winter, who is my business partner. Joining us today are Nicole Martin and Peter Langer, who are with Profix, our business planning and analytics software partner. Andrew, would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Hi, everyone. My name is Andrew Winter, managing partner here with Akamar. I've been it's been about 15 years in accounting, finance, and IT, about 10 years with F&P systems and planning systems in general. We want to thank you for joining today. We've kind of put together a thoughtful agenda that I think it will introduce you to the planning process and also how Profix can make it faster, easier, and smarter. I certainly encourage everybody to kind of speak up or ask questions in the Q&A box throughout the session. We're hoping to have this be as conversational as possible. If you do have a mute or unmute button on your screen, if it's working, you're also encouraged to chime in whenever you want. So we hope everybody has a great session. Look forward to answering any questions. And Peter, if you want to give yourself a brief intro.
Absolutely. Thanks, Andrew, and nice to meet everybody on today's session. My name is Peter Langer. I'm one of the solution engineers over here at Profix, and essentially all that means is that I'm the product expert who's going to be walking you through the solution today. I myself have had some great finance experience starting my career in FP&A before moving into portfolio, and then eventually getting into the software landscape, having worked at a few other competitors as well. Very, very familiar with the industry, and looking forward to today's session, really walking you through our approach to budgeting, forecasting, planning, and reporting, and hopefully answering any questions along the way as they may come up.
Thanks, Peter. Let me talk a little bit about Akamar Consulting. Akamar Consulting is a boutique consulting firm. We're big on relationships. We're key on engaging people, providing proper training, and managing effective change management. We specialize in finance, as we spoke about our experiences, FP&A, finance, modeling, system implementation, administration, data analytics, business process optimization, as well as probably one of the most important things is really creating better business insight. We pride ourselves on relationships, which we've formed with our clients, and the quality of work that we deliver. If we were to compare ourselves to the larger firms that are out there, we just don't walk away from our engagement when it's complete. We will continue to support you and continue to be a partner that you rely on in your operation. An ongoing business partner. So what I want to talk about too is Profix a little bit before I turn it over to Peter, and why we chose Profix as our platform that we stand behind and who we're partnering with. It's a leading performance management suite. It's fully cloud-based. It provides strong integration capabilities. And one of the big things too that we really like is that it's really easy to deploy. Has built-in dashboarding, task manager workflow, and one of the key things as well is it requires very little IT resources to administer. But so those are some of the real important things that I see, and you'll see, I think, once you have a chance to look at it and demo it, you're going to be just as impressed with the application as I am. I've worked with the application since 2017, so it definitely is something that I think it's a great tool for your business. So thanks again for joining us, Peter. You can go ahead and take it away.
Great. Thanks, Brian. And just wanted to start off high level with what Profix can do for you, and specifically your FP&A function. So what you see here are just kind of some high level buckets of really what folks tend to purchase Profix for. You'll see there on the left a variety of different budgeting and planning, forecasting use cases. This is all the way through to personnel and headcount planning, capital planning, revenue, and of course expense modeling as well. The great thing about this is that you can hold multiple different what if scenarios or reforecasts within the system to really respond to changes within the environment very quickly. You'll see down towards the bottom that we do have a full workflow engine that is going to help manage any one of these repeatable processes. So an annual budgeting cycle, monthly or quarterly reforecasts, as well as things like going through a month-end close. Excuse me, can also be managed within the platform. Up towards the top right, you'll see that we have a full suite of reporting and analytics capabilities with the ability to drill down into this information very quickly and easily, as Brian had mentioned, going from the high-level dashboards all the way into the detailed numbers that support any one of those visuals. We won't highlight it as much today, but we do also have a full consolidation and close process that you can also be using Profix to manage and maintain. And I like to use these couple of slides here to kind of paint the picture of what we're coming from and where we're going to. So typically what we see with a lot of our customers is that this is their world today. They have a number of different data systems that you'll see at the bottom. So your GL, payroll, sales system could be also timekeeping system, project management system, really any type of database that you need information to either report on or to help do some of your planning efforts. You're going to dump that into Excel, have a variety of different workbooks. You're then going to have to massage and manipulate all of that information to get that into a consumable format. And then typically you're going to be emailing that out to a variety of different stakeholders. With that, you end up with version control issues. It becomes difficult to know where you're at any particular point within that process. And it can certainly become quite overwhelming and cumbersome over time. You'll see here typically what we see when we're talking to potential clients is that they've reached this kind of point where they have so many different data systems coming into those workbooks, they're distributing it across the organization, and it just becomes a complete pain to manage the overall effort. Within Profix, what you're then able to do is actually consolidate all of those data systems into the Profix platform. This allows you to not only have one single source of the truth, so everybody's working off the same set of information, but you're also able to use that information across systems. So for instance, you might have sales information or headcount or employee information that are going to drive a number of your financial planning and forecasting efforts. You're then able to bring those all into one system to really do that in a much more automated and much more concise fashion. Within the Profix database, you're then able to publish out all of those results into a variety of different formats. This, of course, can be through the Office suite of products, Word, PowerPoint, and Excel, as well as PDF. But we also do have a number of native dashboards and reports within the Profix solution that allows you to really slice and dice this information, create great reporting packages, and again, allow everybody to drive their own analysis and really understand the why behind the what of those numbers. And again, the great thing about loading all of the data into the Profix database is that we've now centralized it so that you can drill into that information without ever having to ever leave Profix. You don't need to flip between 3 or 4 different systems to start to do that research on some of your variances. And just as a high-level agenda for what we're looking to cover off in the next 40 minutes or so, figured we start with some of the dashboarding and analytical capabilities, the ability to go from a high-level visual down into the detail that supports any of that information. Then look at some of the budgeting and planning efforts, how we're able to incorporate a workflow around any one of these processes, start to go through some of the revenue and expense planning, as well as look at how we're also able to include proprietary Excel workbooks. What we find is that on implementation, so some of our clients actually prefer to keep some really complex or mission critical Excel models that they've built up over time within that workbook. You can connect that to the Profix database to ensure that that information is also being captured, and we'll take a look at that as well. We'll then finish things off with a little bit more of that what if or scenario planning, the ability to quickly and easily do reforecasts, and then of course the full reporting suite. As we've mentioned, please feel free to jump in with questions along the way. I believe Brian and Andrew will be monitoring the chat to make sure that I don't miss anything, but hopefully we'll get a good understanding of the platform today. So let me go ahead and share my screen here. And Brian and Andrew, could you just confirm that you're able to see my login screen?
Yes, I can see it.
Perfect. Thank you. So we're going to go and go ahead and access Profix from our web browser. We are a web-based application, which means that you can be connecting to Profix wherever you are, as long as you have an internet connection. I'm using Google Chrome, but we are browser agnostic, as well as the fact that we do also support single sign-on.
Hey, Peter. Actually, yes? I'm not seeing your log-on screen. I just still see demonstration agenda. Hang on a second. I'm not seeing it. I'm not sure if everyone else is or not.
It's coming up for me, Brian, under the audience view.
Oh, is it under the audience view? Oh, okay. Okay, got you. I'm sorry.
No problem at all.
Thank you.
Always good to make sure everybody can see what's going on. Yeah, so as soon as we log into the Profix environment, you're going to be greeted with one of these nice high-level visual dashboards. The great thing about this is that you can set up as many different dashboard views as you'd like. So for instance, you can see here that I also have a CFO dashboard, which is outside of our operating dashboard. These might be specific metrics that are important to the executive team to be looking at versus maybe some more of our operational information. In addition to that, anytime that you set up a dashboard or a template or a report, we leverage our user security and data permissions to ensure that nobody is seeing information that they're not privileged to see. So what that means is that you're able to set up one dashboard view, publish that out to the rest of the organization, and they're only going to see the slice of data that is important to them. If we just look along here, we've got a couple of high-level visuals, a few KPIs that we're tracking along, but also on the right, we have a couple of lists. You'll see our first list here is listing out all of our favorites. So these would be typical input schedules or reports that we might be looking at a pretty frequent basis. For instance, maybe we're going through and doing a bunch of what-if planning around our revenue. So we're going to want to pop that template open a little more frequently. You also see down here a second list that are related to my tasks. And this is where you're able to leverage Profix's workflow to assign those tasks out to those key stakeholders and ensure that they're completing all of those steps that are required to go through a budgeting effort, forecasting effort, or through a monthly or quarterly variance analysis. Just as we're talking about that workflow, I'd like to show the audience just a quick view of what that looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my Profix workflow here. As soon as we open that up, you'll see on the left a detailed view of every single step that's required in order to complete our annual budgeting process. But instead of a list view, I actually prefer to look at this more from a visual kind of top-down view. And this is where you're able to whiteboard out your workflow for any particular process. So again, this could be budgeting, planning, forecasting. This could be a variance process that you're going through on a monthly basis. This could also be managing your monthly close process as well. You'll see here we'll start with our baseline budget preparation. This is important because we don't require you to do a zero-based budget. You can seed any of the budgets with prior year actuals, maybe prior year reforecast, as well as apply a lift or a decrease to those numbers if you would like to kick off your budgeting process. You'll see here all of the steps that are required to complete that effort along the way, and then the final board approval. If I select any one of these steps within the workflow, I'll simply just select our operations here and open up the pane on the right. This actually tells you all of the details related to that particular step within the workflow. We'll see what the type is, if it's a data entry or approval step. We'll see who actually owns that particular input schedule. We'll see who the approvers are, any additional observers who might need to be watching this within the workflow. We'll see that this is contingent on the previous steps being completed, as well as be able to set up things like due dates. Great thing about the due dates is that we can also send out reminders, system generated, to those individuals involved in the process, which means that we eliminate that finger pointing that happens at the 11th hour. Just coming back into our dashboard, we would like to start to drive some of the analysis that we typically see happen as soon as somebody gets some of these visuals presented in front of them. I'll focus on our top right or top left tile here, our revenue variance, and we'll see that quarter over quarter, we're trending along here, but we've actually got quite a large variance in our third quarter. The great thing about these dashboards is that they're fully interactive. If I want to drill into the months behind that third quarter here, simply double click to expand that out, and now we can see this on a monthly variance. If I want to take this one step further and see the actual report that supports this dashboard here, simply a click away to link into the report that supports any one of those visuals that we saw on the dashboard. And this is what we call a standardized report. So that means that I can't change what's in the rows, what's in the columns, but I'm able to make a couple of selections to make this a dynamic report. You'll see on the left here that we're able to select what quarter we'd like to be seeing this information for. As we make a new selection, the values and the visuals will be updated based on those selections. You'll see here that we're able to collect commentary around any one of those variances here. But the great thing about Profix is that we can actually take it a step further. Outside of these kind of quote unquote standardized reports, we can go more into an ad hoc analysis view. And again, that's simply a click away to go into our ad hoc analysis. As we open this up, this will now take that report format and put it more in a pivot table type view, where now I have a few more selections on what I might want to be looking at here. Maybe I want to select specific channels to report on here. Maybe I'd like to pivot around some of the ways that I'm looking at this information. Maybe instead of having our channels as a selection, I would like to just see all of the actuals here. Simply move that up into the column header, and now we're going to be pivoting this data around to a view that makes a little bit more sense to those who might need to do this type of analysis. In addition to that, you can also include things like conditional formatting. So for instance, I can make a selection here, and let's just apply a little conditional formatting for something that's over $2 million. And again, we're able to quickly and easily highlight that so that you can navigate to those values very simplistically here. Just backing out of here a little bit, we can also drill down into some of these particular numbers here. And the great thing about this is that we've got the actuals here. And if I'd like to see any of the supporting transactions behind any one of those values, simply click into that and we'll see all of the transactions that are related to that particular metric there. This is the information that we're loading in from any of your source systems, and now we're able to see all of the transactional values that in this case we're looking at the revenue. So this would have been coming in from our CRM. We can see our customer name, so some additional detail around that, particular invoice numbers, as well as the fact that we're also able to link to the invoice image itself. So if I actually want to see the physical copy of this, simply a click away, and we can see the invoice that supports any of those transactions. So what you've just seen there is the ability to go from a high-level dashboard, a high-level visual, all the way through to the supporting report, as well as the ability to quickly and easily navigate to the transactional detail that builds up to any one of those visuals there, giving you a ton of confidence around anything that you're reporting on, as well as to ensure that everybody is working off the same sets of data. just coming back into our dashboard view, I think it'd be nice to turn over to some of the actual budgeting and planning templates. I'll kind of work top to bottom here. We'll cover off some revenue planning, some OPEX planning, and some personnel planning. As we open up one of these templates, again, this should look pretty familiar to an Excel type template. However, this is built within the Profix interface. If I'd like to update or change any one of these values here, simply type them into the cell, and that'll be committed back to the database. The great thing about this is that we appreciate that you finance folks certainly want to keep a lot of that Excel functionality. If I'd like to use some of that Excel syntax, you can do so simply within the cell here. Maybe I want to do a 10% increase, or maybe I want this to be a sum of these numbers. We can support that within any one of these schedules. But even beyond just that kind of Excel syntax or functionality, we've also baked in some other types of functions that really help make these efforts a lot more streamlined and a lot easier to do. For instance, let's say for our second product category, we're expecting a big increase for the back half of the year, from July through to September. I can simply just make a selection across those cells here. We'll right-click and we'll adjust the data. Maybe I'm expecting a 50% increase in sales across that time period. As we type that in, Profix will now automatically recalculate that to include that 50% lift. Beyond just selecting a range, we can do this at a total year level. For instance, if I look at my third product category here, we're estimating to sell just over 16,000 units, but maybe I want to bump this up to 18,000 units. When we enter it at a total year level and hit enter, Profix is smart enough to know that we're entering this value at a total year level. So it's going to prompt us to spread this across those 12 months. And in this particular example, we're looking more at a time period. But this could also be applicable across business units within the organization, could be applicable across GL accounts. We can spread top level down really in any form or fashion there. In this spreading capability, we can of course spread evenly, so just putting the same amount across each 12 month or each of the 12 months there. We can spread based on the existing data. Where that's helpful is if you've seeded any of your budgets with any of the prior year actuals or reforecast, you can always spread based on those particular seasonality patterns. But the great thing about this is that we baked in a lot of advanced functionality into this spreading capability. For instance, I can also select a particular account to spread that on, maybe a particular version. So I want to spread based on last year's actuals as opposed to this year's budget, as well as a number of other items to spread that on. For instance, if I open up my account here, we could also do this based on particular pricing that we have. We could do this based on quantity that we're looking to sell here, and we can spread this based on a number of different factors. As we make that update, Profix will recalculate all of those values for us. So again, this is just a high-level example of how we're able to go through and capture some of that revenue planning information. We have a lot of customers that plan revenue a multitude of different ways. It could be more at a project level, where we can be capturing all of the related costs related to those jobs, as well as all of the associated revenues, including some of the change requests or new work orders that might come through. You can make those templates much more dynamic to capture all of that kind of continuous feed of information that goes into these types of plans. Moving along here, moving down the P&L a little bit, we'll go through and look at some of our OPEX planning. Again, as we open up this particular schedule, this is going to be in that template format where we've got our GL accounts listed in the rows and our months across the columns. You also see that we've got a few selection options just off to the left, where we can select which department we want to be planning for, as well as the fact that we can also plan for our budget, as well as maybe another scenario. Maybe we want those particular budget contributors to be including a best case and a worst case scenario, or just a high level budget and a little bit more conservative budget. We can be allowing that as well. Again, we're able to use all of the same functionality that we saw in the previous template, be able to update or change any one of those numbers. But I'd like to just highlight a couple of other items that are important here. For instance, if we look at our advertising line, you'll see that there's a little green triangle denoted under each one of these numbers. The reason for that is because in our particular example, our advertising account gets a lot of scrutiny. So we don't want just a high level number planned at a GL level. We actually want to include much more detail that supports any of our advertising spend. You'll see that if I try to overwrite this value, I'm prompted to use our line item schedule. As we open that up, you'll see that we actually have to detail out each one of our campaigns related to our advertising spend. In this case, we have a web campaign, television, radio, print. We can add in, a new campaign here. So simply build this up. Maybe we're expecting an additional $1,000 here that is going to be spread across the year. And again, we can go through and include as many different schedules as we would like across as many different GL accounts.
Yeah, I think Peter, that's a great feature that's kind of just built into the tool, especially for those that do want to do more of a zero-based budget type approach, where you typically build up from the detail and kind of justify every dollar spent. And for those systems, for those clients that like to do zero-based spend, this eliminates a lot of the build that we would have to do otherwise in the system to facilitate that.
Absolutely. Great point, Andrew. And in addition to that, when you think about going through that variance process, being able to not only drill into the transactional values, but essentially being able to plan at the transactional spend, which is what we're doing, kind of the below the line GL planning here, really ties together those two efforts. Yes.
Sure. And I think the other thing that's really, really great to point out too is because it can pull in any amount of detail, right, down to the individual transactions, it also makes for great control and monitoring. So as your actuals come in, you can run those dashboards. For example, who's your biggest T&E spender? Are they compliant with your preferred hotels or airlines, for example? So that's another fantastic aspect here that we can do with transactional data. Great for not only the variance reporting, but just control and monitor in general.
Absolutely. And also when it comes to some more of those control type accounts, you'll see just down towards the bottom, our lodging and airfare accounts are whited out, meaning that we can't overwrite those sections. Those are actually coming from a completely separate schedule, which are much more driver based. So if you want to control those at a more centralized kind of control level, being able to say, well, we know what the designated number of trips are, we know what the average cost per night or average cost per flight is, and that's going to be your allocated spend for the year. You can certainly do that at a much more controlled level as well.
Yeah, this is another nifty feature that makes it a lot easier to plan here. You don't really have to sit and do a bunch of offline calculations. The system will do it all for you. Using whatever the accepted corporate rates are.
Absolutely. And that actually brings me to another great point, Andrew, is for particular categories where you might not have designated that you need to include additional detail, but you might just have large lump sum values. I'll just pick on this trade shows amount here, this 25-26. Maybe we're going to bump this up to $10,000 for this year. But we know that that's going to get a lot of scrutiny from finance or the executives. So we'd actually like to include some rationale here. I can simply right click and add in an additional comment. And maybe we have an approved PO. And we can also include an attachment that supports that. So that could be, that could be any additional schedule, an Excel workbook, Word, PowerPoint, PDF. You can be including any additional attachments that would be beneficial during that approval process, or even when you're going through and doing your variance analysis. You can include maybe change orders or additional work requests that may have been approved when you're going through and actually supporting why there are variances across the business. Great. Andrew, how are we moving along? Anything that I've missed so far, or you want me to just keep moving to some of the personnel planning?
I think this has been a good overview of the features of the planning input itself. If you wanted, you can go on to the next session, or even maybe the Excel or the Office 365.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, actually, one last thing I just wanted to show quickly in this template was the ability to also see changes across different budget versions. So if you have a first pass budget and a finalized budget, or a budget to reforecast, you can also quickly and easily see those variances just by making a selection here. And this is going to be system calculated, so we can actually see and pinpoint where those exact differences are here. So between those two different scenarios, we can see what the changes have been. But let's go ahead and move into some of that Excel capability. And this is simply just going to be a workbook that I have listed in my favorites. And again, this is more for a use case where you have an incredibly complex workbook, a lot of proprietary information, calculations that would take a while to implement within any particular planning tool. And you'd feel very comfortable around that, and you'd simply like to keep that format and structure. It's already been audited, and the executives feel good about the way that this is being handled. We can incorporate that workbook into Profix here. And what I'll just open up my Analyzer tab here. And this is the way that we're able to connect Profix back to, or connect this workbook back to the Profix database.
As that's opening, we have, I've been doing this for a long time, and I've never won a war against Excel. So the ability to kind of live with Excel as kind of a given within the financial world is a big deal. So it's great to see that Profix has already put the time and effort into integrating these capabilities.
And sorry, Andrew, can you see my Excel workbook right now?
No, I only see the deck.
Let me just pivot this around. Here we are. Should be able to see that workbook now.
Yeah, I see it.
Perfect. So what you'll see up here in the Excel ribbon is this Profix Analyzer. This is what allows you to connect to this. So you'll see all of the properties here, but really it's these couple of buttons at the bottom. We're able to refresh data, and we're able to save data back to Profix. And just to give you a quick high-level overview of kind of the way that we treat this is we like to kind of bookend this workbook. So you can imagine the blue and yellow tabs. These are all of the calculations and inputs, assumptions, and drivers that you have in your particular workbook. But then we bookend it with the data pull, which is going to bring in all of the required information. You might recall that this looks a little bit like the ad hoc analysis we had, where we're pulling in this case, we want to pull in information for the first 6 months of the year for these particular sales reps, for these customers across these product lines. We're then going to use that information that we're pulling in from Profix to run through our model here. So this would be your particular model that you have already built in Excel. It will run through all of the steps, all of the calculations, include any of the additional increases or assumptions that need to be made. And then we're going to push the data back into Profix. And again, you'll see that kind of view that we have here of the months and what we need to be pushing back into Profix. And you'll see that these are all Excel formulas. So this is aggregating all of the heavy lift that the model has done in Excel. And we're simply going to push those values back into Profix so that we're then able to report on it, use it for additional calculations or drivers that might be required to complete that budgeting or planning effort.
And can this also be used to like a pivot? So for example, if somebody just wants to go in and query the system, you know, they can pivot these.
Absolutely. You would define that within your data pool, and you can then change or specify what information you want pulled into this workbook. But for a lot of the kind of quote unquote quick and dirty analysis that we see, we'll do a lot of that through our ad hoc analysis capabilities. So certainly a couple of different options there, depending if you want to keep it in Excel and simply pull the data into Excel to do some additional manipulation, or you can do that within the Profix database.
Cool.
Great. So let me just pivot back to what we're looking at here. All right. So Andrew, just confirm you can see that Profix dashboard again?
Yes, sir.
Great. Perfect. So let's keep moving along some of our planning efforts where, in this case, we're going to start to look at some of that personnel planning. This is where we're able to load in a full list of your employees, and these could be revenue generating employees, they could be cost center employees, and you're able to use this detailed planning manager to actually do a lot of complex calculations. So this is used really for anywhere where you see a bunch of different kind of attributes associated with these types of calculations. And I'm going to focus on our first employee here. You'll see that we're able to change, the department that they're sitting in. If we do have multiple entities, we can move them across different entities. We can define if they're annual or hourly typed employees, or contract or subcontracted out. We can define their position, salary, or rate. But the great thing is that then Profix is going to do all of the heavy lifting to capture the total earnings, benefits, annual increases, payroll taxes that are associated with each one of these employees. And if I just actually open up the form for this employee, you'll see here that this is where you're able to list out all of the specific information for this individual. If they have things like retirement matches, you're also able to select where and how the payroll taxes will be calculated. So in this case, we have Cheryl sitting in Texas here. Let's say Cheryl decides to move to Canada, and now we're going to have a province selection as opposed to a state. Excuse me, as opposed to a state selection. In addition to this, you can also do a lot of complex things and nuances that go along with your employee planning. So for instance, here from the summary tab, we're going to see how all of Cheryl's earnings, benefits, bonuses, retirement match, payroll taxes are being calculated here. But you can also do things like specify when there's going to be an annual increase, or a particular bonus that might be applicable for this individual. You can specify when that's going to happen, and you can also put end dates around this. In addition to that, you can also allocate Cheryl across a number of different departments. So you'll see in this case, we've got her putting 50% of her time into her kind of quote unquote flagged department. But then she's also going to allocate out 20% of her salary to content marketing and 30% to field marketing. So this is how you're able to incorporate all of the complex nuances that go with a planning effort around something like employees.
Yeah, this is a, kind of going back to what Brian said about speed to value with system implementations. Labor planning is one of those parts that can get really complicated and take up a lot of time to build out those models. I did ESPN's labor planning system, and it was probably about a 6-month project to get through all of this. And here it's kind of just built into the tool. It's more of a configuration and less of a build. So, for anybody that needs labor planning, this is a big deal, having this available. I haven't really seen this in other planning systems, Oracle or Anaplan. A lot of those still require that you build up these models from scratch.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a great point, Andrew. And essentially, what we would do on the implementation is just like you said. It's more of a configuration. What are the actual limits or thresholds that you've built into your employee contracts that we need to be baking into this particular solution to make sure that the calculations are happening accurately. So it's a much smaller effort to actually bring a full detailed planning schedule into Profix and actually get that tying to all of your reporting packages.
Yeah, for sure. And S&B is typically the biggest line on the P&L, so getting that right and allocated properly throughout the business, that's not a small feat. It's an important one for sure.
Absolutely. And just doing a quick time check here. I know we've only got about 10 minutes left. Just wanted to pop open two other quick schedules before we looked at some of the reporting. First, around the cash flow forecasting. As I know, this can certainly be a big manual challenge to manage this cash flow on a little bit tighter basis. Here, you'll see that we've got some receivables, some payables that we're planning for. This, again, we can be loading in from your AP/AR schedule subledger. So putting in the invoice date, the amount, the term, we can select that. In this case, we've already loaded in the customers, the projects, and vendors. And we can always tweak and change. See how that ties into a cash flow forecast. We'll open up that report here. And you can see here that this is how we're then able to see what those changes are that we're making on that cash flow schedule, how they're then going to be impacting our cash flow forecast here. We can then, of course, make some high-level adjustments, maybe around payroll. Maybe we want to push out a bonus by a month or something to that effect. You can also do that. Maybe include some commentary around why we're making updates or changes to the cash flow, and you can again capture all of that within the system. In addition to that, just wanted to pop open our capital planning schedule. This is more around fixed assets, but this would also work for bigger capital projects as well, if some of those are being captured today as part of your planning efforts. But essentially what we're able to do is load in that fixed asset listing. We can connect into any of your fixed asset systems, determine what the depreciation method is, useful life, all of the appropriate metrics to run that calculation. And then we're able to see what that looks like from a fixed asset report. So here we can see the asset class and how that's affecting our balance sheet. And then just from a reporting standpoint, just wanted to touch on a couple of key items here. So the ability to generate a monthly, quarterly, or annual variance report, being able to pull in your actuals from your source system, the budget that's going to be built up within Profix. We're then going to be calculating the variance dollar amount and percentages within the system. So that's no longer a manual effort. And we can do things like month to date, year to date, quarter to date, really any time frame that you want to be looking at. You're then going to be able to collect the commentary around that. You can also support additional attachments. But you'll see here that we've also got a selection for different reporting currencies. So if you are operating in multiple jurisdictions, we can certainly support all of the currency conversion that would be required to do this type of reporting. When we're going through and doing our variance analysis, we might need to go through and then complete a revenue or a reforecast effort as well. And as we start collecting that information, we're then going to populate any one of these templates with the actuals. We're then going to have an appropriate reforecast piece here, where in this case we have a 3+9. And the great thing is that all of the functionality that we saw previously still works within these templates. So if I want to change any of these numbers, use any of the Excel syntaxes, or if I want to change more to high level, I'll take this 18,000 and maybe we want to revise this down to a 15,000 based on the actuals that are coming in. I can then spread that based on any one of those spread patterns that we saw before. But Profix is smart enough to know that we should only be allocating that over the remaining 9 months and take into consideration what the actuals have been for the first 3. so that we'll end up with the appropriate total there.
Hey, Peter, can I make a comment? It's Brian.
Of course.
Can you go back one? I think we're back one screen, and I noticed that one of the things that really caught my eye, and you might have mentioned this too already, but I just want to highlight it, was around where you can actually put comments in. Because I remember one of the things that we struggled with in the past was we're going through a forecast. Some applications, other applications aren't great with managing text and being able to tie text to certain data intersections. You know what I mean, in a cube. It looks like Profix has that ability that you can actually write comments and be able to write variance explanations directly into the text. It's not on the right. I don't know if that was what I saw. I said comments is what it said. Is that true?
Absolutely. So we can capture comments kind of in two forms. One is just as we're looking at here, what we're describing is putting a particular comment on the $10,000 value. That's not living within the template like it would Excel. This is actually appended to the $10,000 amount. So if I was to pull that into a report, I would see approved PO and I would see the attachment come with it. If I just go back to my variance, we can also capture comments more at a line level as well. So if I want to explain the variance for my employees' salaries, I could do that at a little bit higher level there as well.
Andrew and I worked with TM1 and enterprise planning for a long time, and I know that other people on the call has as well. And this is one of the things that Cognos did not do well. And being able to notate like this on an income statement is a huge plus.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And maybe something that I haven't specifically called out here is that in these pick lists here, you'll notice that we're actually doing all of the aggregation from a data model standpoint, where, for instance, we can look at this at a total level, or we can look at this at, in this case, an individual entity, could be an individual department or business unit, really however you slice and dice that information is how we're going to be able to aggregate and roll that up from a data model standpoint. So it becomes an automatic feature. Anything changes within, in this case, Stark Industries, the total entities number will be automatically recalculated for you. And then I know we're just about at time here, so just wanted to quickly pivot back and show, of course, we do our three statements, so balance sheet, cash flow, and income statement. These, of course, are then going to be supported by a little bit more detailed schedules, where in this case, we're looking at our balance sheet. We can break this out by month. We can see all of the balance sheet planning that we've done, inclusive of capital planning and any of the cash management that might be happening. Our cash flow is then going to be calculated based on the system as well. So this, again, removes that manual intervention to do all of your cash flow planning. And then just finally...
I was just going to say, for many years, I ran the Walt Disney cash flow forecasting system, and that thing was a pain in the butt to do. So it's great to see that you've got kind of this capability to derive the cash flow in a way that doesn't require a lot of detailed modeling around it to be able to pull the balance sheet and the income statement and derive it. So this is also another one that I think it's kind of overlooked. Most people are interested in planning for their income statements, but cash flow is a big deal, right? It tells you how much money you've got in the bank and how much you're going to have going forward. So with respect to decisions around large purchases, the cash flow matters. And it's great to see that it's here.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Thanks for calling that out, Andrew. And again, that's going to be something that, upon implementation, we're going to be setting that up as one of the first steps to make sure that you do have that full reporting package, and that everything is flowing through your financial model to appropriately tick and tie, and then you're able to plan out as many different scenarios as you'd like based on that overall structure. just rounding things out here, while we can certainly view and look at any of those reports within the system, we can also publish out what we call a financial reporting binder, or really basically any reports that would need to go to a certain set of individuals. These can be Excel, PDF, Word docs. They're then going to be the designated reports. In this case, we've got our full financial statements, variance analysis, some detailed balance sheet and cash flow. And we designate who that goes to through our distribution list. And again, you can restrict who gets this information, and also they're going to be having their user permissions applied when they receive those reports. So again, if you're sending out kind of reports en masse, you don't need to worry about people seeing the wrong sets of data. That's going to be controlled through the system.
Yeah, and I like this feature too. You know, there's the ability to just email reports to folks, and it's already pre-sliced to the part that they care about. You know, I've come across a couple instances in the past year or so where we could have used that burst report functionality, and unfortunately it's just not available, surprisingly, in many platforms. So.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And just kind of getting to that full reporting package, right? We've published this out to PDF where now you've got kind of a full annual, quarterly, or monthly reporting book here.
And the commentary can be pulled in too, correct?
Absolutely. Here, this is where you'd be uploading all of the commentary that we captured at the line level, but we can also capture commentary more at this level as well. So we have a distinction between what we call H notes, which are more kind of this meta data, and then row notes, which are more at kind of the line level.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the reason I bring this up is because there are, you know, especially when you have decks that are, or reports that go out to investors or to a board of directors, you know, oftentimes people, they run the reports and then they you have to copy everything into a Word document or PowerPoint and then add all the commentary. But it's great to see here that we can actually load the commentary in and the system can generate that report package on its own.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So that's really what I was looking to cover off today. I see that we're just coming up to the top of the hour, so hopefully that was a good comprehensive walkthrough of what Profix would look like in your day-to-day world, to start to paint the picture that way. Andrew, Brian, were there any comments or questions that came through the chat that we need to address, or should I hand it back to you folks to wrap things up?
No, I don't see.
Through the Q&A. So if anybody has any questions, you know, feel free again. You should see a Q&A box, and you can type any questions in. Or again, if you've got a mute button that's working, you can unmute and just chime in.
Or you can email us directly, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that might come to mind after the call. Of course, we'll respond back very quickly.
Absolutely.
Great. Well, if there isn't anything else, I think we're good to close out this session then.
All right. Well, thank you everybody that's been in attendance. We really do appreciate your time. And we look forward to talking with all of you in the near future.
You bet. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.